So I think the word boredom is an interesting word to describe the interaction with your own baby, because I think if you tell me that you feel bored interacting with somebody else's baby, well, I don't, because I'm in the field and I find babies absolutely fascinating because I know what's going on behind their eyes. And I know that every single interaction, every time they put something in their mouth, brain cells are bursting in terms of growing. But, I think without that background, I would say it's instinctually correct maybe to say that you feel bored playing with somebody else's baby if you're not in the field and babies aren't your thing. But to say that you're bored with your own baby, we call that a form of postpartum depression. Yes, of course, there's boring moments. I mean, there's boring moments as a doctor, as a lawyer, as a TV producer, as a therapist. I mean, there's always boring moments in life with every kind of work. But to say you're pervasively bored raising your own child, being with your own child, sitting on the floor, playing with your own child, is to recall some kind of neglect between you and your mother. It is recalling some kind of disconnect, because it is instinctually incorrect to feel pervasively bored with your own flesh and blood baby, or with a baby who you have attached to. If you adopt a baby and you get emotionally attached to them, to feel bored caring for them is not instinctually correct. So then we say, gosh, there's Houston, there's something wrong here, as the saying goes. But to say that interest in a baby is the cornerstone of being there. When there's a story in Being There that I put in there. I interviewed a lot of mothers, and one mother I interviewed, I think she was Swedish, or I can't remember, she was Northern European. I think she was Swedish or Danish. When I interviewed her, she said, watching babies play, watching babies on the floor, watching your own baby is a little bit like watching the leaves change or the grass grow, or it's happening, but it's happening in a subtle and nuanced way. And it's beautiful and it's fascinating, but you have to be able to deal with the slowness of it, because the slowness is not what adults are used to. They're used to fast and quick and things moving and people calling and television, noise. And babies live in a world where things are happening very fast inside, but very slow outside.
Right.
And so the ability to sit on the floor and just be mindful, be in the present, appreciate that you have this beautiful child in front of you that's your child, and know that every moment you're spending with them, you're building a relationship with them, and watch them put the objects in their mouth, and know that every object that's going in their mouth, they're learning, because by putting things in their mouth, they're exploring. It's like using your tongue to see. And so, yeah, I mean, I do encourage mothers to read about the neuroscience, because I think with very hyper intellectual left brain professional mothers, they need to kind of know what's going on, because there's the myth that nothing's going on. I had a woman come up to me at a cocktail party and say, I'm thinking if I take time off, I'm going to take time off when they're like older, because when they're like babies, like nothing's going on. And I burst out and I was like, oh my gosh, I got stuff to tell you. There is so much going on. I can't even tell you at a cocktail party. Let's sit down and have lunch and I'll tell you everything that's going on inside your baby. But the myth that because, I can't remember what she said something like, and this is a very sophisticated, very well-educated woman,
Yes.
So it's not class, it's not education, because you have mothers who are not professional and didn't go to college, and they are just eating up they're watching their babies and fascinated with their babies. So it really is an emotional impairment when you struggle. And so then I say, if that's the case, don't you want to understand it as a person? Don't you want to be close to your children in the long run? And if you do, then you need to understand why you can't be close to them in the short run.
Yes. And so you have the connection, building the connection. So for parents who are, doing that, you then have the mothers who might be thinking, oh, I'm learning that the first 3 years are really important and I need to be the primary caregiver and the primary person that my child depends on for their emotional well-being. However, in these economic times, they might have to go back to work, or some other things may be happening in their lives that they're not able to be present with their child as often as they need to be. If that is the case, how can they repair the relationship on a daily basis to maintain or to try as best as possible to develop that secured attachment in their children?
Well, I mean, what I say is more is more. The more physically and emotionally present you are, the better. Does that mean that if you have to work, you can't work? I mean, if you have to work, you have to work. And I think you reduce your work to as little as you can while still, being able to afford the groceries and the roof over your head. But then we all need to evaluate, are we working for that, or are we working for other things? But